I just wanted to make a quick announcement just before we started. Those that wanted to make public comment had already emailed our board secretary prior to the meeting, so we'll be reading those shortly. So I have to call the meeting to order. Pam, could you take roll call?
Yeah. Brown?
Yeah.
Johnson?
Yes.
Ellenberger?
Yes.
William?
Here.
Sinar?
Present.
Braid?
Here.
Gorman?
Here. All right, I'd like to request a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Brown?
Aye.
Johnson?
Yes.
Ellenberger?
Yes.
Nolan?
Yes.
Sinar?
Yes.
Braid?
Yes.
Gorman?
Yes. All right, now.
Yeah. It's Eric. Can you mute themselves when they're not talking?
All right, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
For which it
for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty and justice for all. All right, recognition of visitors. Dr. Stern, I think we have a couple people who will be presenting. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything.
Yes, thank you to the community and administration and educators that are joining us remotely through the YouTube channel. And thank you to the administrators that are joining us in the Google Meet, who have worked on the handbook and are presenting for Lower Lake and Country Trails. Welcome, everyone.
All right, we're going to read the public comments that we received. I will start. We received a letter from Missy Hoffman, so I will read that. My name is Missy Hoffman. I have been a Prairie View parent for the last 5 years. I have 2 children currently attending Prairie View and 1 who will attend Prairie View in the next few years. I have also been a member of the Prairie View PTO for the last 5 years, and I currently chair 2 PTO committees to help support our school, the students, teachers, and all Prairie View families. Prairie View has always been a wonderful home away from home for my girls, a safe, supportive, caring environment where they can learn and grow and thrive. We have been blessed with incredible teachers every year, and this year is no exception. We are so incredibly fortunate that my daughter Hannah landed in Mr. D. Domenico's 2nd grade class this school year. From the moment we were introduced last August at a parent-teacher meet and greet, I knew we had landed in a class where my daughter would grow and learn and thrive, where she would be supported and cared for and encouraged to be the best version of herself. And I could not have been more right. As a parent of one of his students and someone lucky enough to have been able to volunteer frequently in his classroom, I have witnessed firsthand the positive impact Mr. D has on his students and their families. I watched Hannah get on the bus every morning, and I knew that she, no matter what kind of day she was having, would be safe and cared for and know that she mattered in her classroom among her peers and her teacher. Mr. D creates a safe and loving environment in his classroom, safe not only in the physical sense, but taking it many steps further, a space where his students can be themselves, where they feel safe to make their own decisions, voice their opinions, make mistakes, and engage in learning in ways that benefit them most. He always makes his students feel safe, loved, cared for, respected, and engaged in learning. He encourages his students to face challenges head on and emphasizes that making a mistake is okay. Those are experiences that help us learn and grow. Watching him instruct his class this year it is evident to me that Mr. D takes the time to get to know each other and every one of his students, and not just their names and their current reading or math competencies, but their interests, their dislikes, their families, their moods and mannerisms, and their learning styles. He knew when someone was having an off day and knew how to address those behaviors in a way that was constructive and kind and compassionate. He knew when to and how to effectively engage particular students who may not have really wanted to be working in that moment. And I saw those students perk up and re-engage in the lesson happily because they felt empowered to make that decision to engage and learn and support their peers in their learning. I witnessed students who in the beginning of the year would never raise their hand to answer a question come full circle and could barely contain their enthusiasm to give an answer. I've also observed a class where the students help one another without any prompting. They genuinely care about their classmates and want them to engage and learn. I watched a gaggle of distracted, confused, frustrated second graders come alive and actively engage during Google meetings during one of the most complicated, stressful, confusing times in all of our lives. I watch Mr. D give more than 100% every day because he genuinely cares for his students and has a true passion for teaching. I've seen tremendous growth in Hannah when it comes to respect and compassion and empathy. Mr. D encourages his students to be second in second grade, to put others ahead of themselves, to create an environment of mutual respect, kindness, compassion, and understanding. A philosophy I cannot have more pride, admiration, and respect for. Kindness, understanding, compassion, forgiveness, these are all important values in our home. And to have them reinforced in the classroom has allowed her to build and strengthen relationship with friends, family, and given her confidence in her interactions with others and has boosted her self-confidence. I'm writing this letter to express my extreme disappointment and frustration that Mr. D's contract was not renewed for the next school year. This news comes as a huge shock to me and to the community. We have a number of families in support of Mr. D who have expressed their dissatisfaction with the district's decision. I would like to share with you some direct quotes from some of the families, pulled from a social media page created to support Mr. D as he is forced to make the transition away from Prairie View. Quote, in my opinion, Mr. D was the best teacher my son ever had. He was understanding of my son's unique needs and quite frankly, was one of the few teachers that provided a positive school experience for my son. This just makes me so sad. Is there anything I can do? If there's anything I can do, please let me know, unquote. The second quote, this news not only deeply saddens me, but also makes me really frustrated and angry. My daughter was lucky enough to have Mr. D for her second grade teacher, and he was one of a kind. I remember going to the Meet the Teacher info night and being blown away. As a parent, I left there not only knowing that she was in great hands in terms of academic instruction, more importantly, that she was going to grow as a person. She was going to develop an even greater love for learning. I was correct on all accounts, and even now, if you ask her, she's in fourth grade, about Mr. D, she gets a huge smile on her face and talks about how much she loved being in his class and what a kind teacher he was. This is a huge loss for our school, unquote. Third quote, I was so sad and upset to read this. Mr. D has been amazing, such a great teacher. The district is definitely making a huge mistake. Mr. D is one of those teachers you remember forever and who can impact your life for the better. There are only a few teachers I had that I could say this about for my entire education. Mr. D will be that teacher for me. I stand behind him 100% and will do anything to help. He's been top-notch during the school closing and has made e-learning an amazing experience, unquote. This is a devastating loss to the Prairie View community, especially to Mr. D's past and current students, their parents, and other Prairie View staff that will no longer be able to connect with him during the school day for guidance, support, or just a quick chat that would surely warm their hearts. To all the future Prairie View second graders who will never get to experience what it is to have him as a teacher and benefit from the positive impact he would have made in their lives. This decision not to renew Mr. D's contract is disheartening. I really cannot see how this decision is in the best interest of our schools, its students, or our Prairie View community. Sincerely, Missy Hoffman.
Okay, I'm going to read a letter from Sharon Haig. My name is Sharon Haig. I am the parent of 4 D301 students, one of whom was lucky enough to have had Mr. James DiDomenico as her second grade teacher this school year. I taught first and second grades for almost 13 years and have been the co-president of the Prairie View PTO for the past 2 years. I know the time and dedication it takes to be an elementary school teacher. I was thrilled to be able to volunteer in Mr. D's second grade class this year and see firsthand what an incredible teacher he is. I am emailing to share my extreme disappointment, shock, sadness, and anger that our district has chosen not to renew Mr. DiDomenico's teaching contract for the upcoming 2019-2020 school year. Our entire Prairie View community is rallying around Mr. D. He has been part of the PV community since 2008. first as a parent, then as a teacher for the past 3 years. But his impact is felt well beyond the walls of the school. Mr. D is an active and extremely well-respected member of the entire community, and one that we are all devastated to lose as a teacher at PV. As a direct result of volunteering in Mr. D's classroom and having a daughter in his class, I was able to see firsthand what an incredible teacher he is. First and foremost, every single student in Mr. D's classroom felt safe, supported, and respected from the very beginning of the school year. My daughter Fiona is shy and takes a while to feel comfortable in new situations. Mr. D truly went above and beyond to make her feel safe and confident. He made connections with her, talked about her interests with her, and made her excited to go to school every day to see him and share what was happening in her life. Mr. D's motto is "Be second in second." This means that students should think of others before they think of themselves, which is such an incredible life lesson, and one that his students embrace because of his modeling and support. His students were caring and kind and empathetic because of the example he set and his daily expectations. The culture in his classroom is one that I have rarely witnessed in many years of substitute teaching, classroom teaching, and volunteering in classrooms. Not only did students in Mr. D's class feel welcome and supported, but they were very clearly learning and applying the curriculum. When I volunteered in his classroom, I often caught some of the whole group lesson and then helped during learning stations. His students were engaged during the whole group lesson, which I know is not easy to do with 7 and 8-year-olds. Mr. D utilized a variety of tools, projector, dry erase boards, interactive games on their Chromebooks, to keep students engaged and accountable for following the lessons and participating. When it came time for learning stations, he clearly explained expectations, answered any questions, and made sure students knew what to do before stations began. While Mr. D met with small group to work on math skills, I helped students work independently. It was clear that the independent work was an extension of the lessons he taught and had students working to apply their knowledge and problem solve in a variety of ways. The expectation for Mr. D was that students were working hard and being respectful of other learners, and his students demonstrated this every time I was in his classroom. I have triplets, 1 in Mr. D's class and 2 in other PV second grade classrooms. So it is hard not to compare what is going on in one classroom versus another. Which of my girls has learned new skills and information, and also how much parent-teacher communication is happening. My daughter Fiona has learned so much this year from Mr. D. In working closely with all the girls during quarantine, I am able to see firsthand how much she has learned this school year as a result of Mr. D's teaching. Her reading skills, both fluency and comprehension, have improved considerably since the beginning of school, and she loves reading. Her writing and math skills have also improved, and she is able to demonstrate and apply her knowledge independently and with confidence. As a former second grade teacher, I feel that Fiona is ready for third grade because of the strong foundation Mr. D has given her and is continuing hard work during e-learning. Parent communication plays a large role at any age, but particularly so at the early elementary level. Again, having a student in 3 of the second grade classrooms at the same school allowed me to know what is happening in various classrooms, both with teaching, learning, and parent communication. Mr. D truly went above and beyond in his parent communication. The parents in his class were always well informed of everything going on in the classroom, as well as upcoming events. He used a variety of ways to communicate consistently with parents and always made it clear we could contact him at any time with any questions or concerns, and made us feel like we were truly part of a team with the common goal of helping our students succeed and love school. Mr. D always followed up in a very timely manner whenever I contacted him throughout the school year. The way that Mr. D conducted himself since learning he would not be rehired speaks volumes about his character as a human being, his complete dedication to his students, and his professionalism as an educator. Mr. D hosted daily online class meetings throughout the quarantine, even during the scheduled spring break. He continued to consistently communicate with parents and students throughout the past months of e-learning and he reached out personally to see how students and parents were doing. Mr. D even planned e-learning lessons for spring break for the entire second grade student population for those who wanted to participate, and as a way to help parents keep their children busy during this stressful time. He also took the time and effort to coordinate a car parade for the Prairie View staff through all of our Prairie View neighborhoods so that our children could connect with their teachers and bring joy to our entire community. As a parent, a former elementary teacher, and an active member of the Prairie View community, I am extremely disappointed that Mr. DiDomenico won't be back at Prairie View. I am devastated for his future students and parents, for his colleagues, for his former students like Fiona, who won't get to see and high-five him at school, and for our whole community. It is truly District 301's loss, and one that will be felt for a very long time. If I had to choose a teacher for any of my 4 children to have, I would pick Mr. D every single time. Sincerely, Sharon Haig.
Our next public comment is a letter to the Board of Education from Mrs. Julie Zell. To the District 301 School Board, my name is Julie Zell, and I have 2 students who currently attend Prairie View. My daughter Lauren has the privilege of having Mr. DiDomenico as her second grade teacher this year. I have also had the pleasure of volunteering in his classroom on a weekly basis, so I was able to experience what an amazing teacher Mr. D is. I just wanted to email to voice my shock, disappointment, and frustration that Mr. D's contract was not renewed for the next school year. This is a huge loss to the Prairie View community, especially past, current, and future students, along with parents and other staff. I am sad for future second graders who will not be able to have the amazing experience of having him as a teacher. My daughter loves having him as a teacher and has grown so much in his classroom. I really enjoy when I get to volunteer in his classroom. It is such a positive, engaging, yet calming environment, which are necessary for success in this age group. Honestly, I even feel more calm when I am in his classroom. I have the pleasure of seeing the growth of each student throughout the school year, academically and socially. They are so compassionate, encouraging with each other. This is due to the values Mr. D instilled in them right from the start. Mr. D really gets to know his students' interests, which allow him to personally cater his interactions with them in the classroom. I feel this keeps each student engaged and interested in learning. When I am in the classroom, I am able to see that the students all respect him. This is shown with how well they listen when he is giving his expectations and instruction prior to their stations. As a coach to my daughter's cheerleading team at this age level, I definitely know how hard this can be. I would like to include some direct quotes of other parents who have had interactions with Mr. D from a social media page that is dedicated to supporting him. Quote, I am so saddened to hear this, end quote. Quote, I have faith that you, for the next chapter, you will find a district worthy of your talent, creativity, drive, and kindness, end quote. Quote, there is a reason that all the kids and even all the parents keep their fingers crossed that they will be placed in Mr. D's class, end quote. Quote, he is not someone who is just going to stand idly and wallow in self-pity. He will fight for what he deserves with an amazing army behind him and come out of the situation even better and stronger, end quote. Again, I, along with many others, are heartbroken that Mr. DiDomenico's contract was not renewed. This will leave a huge hole, not only in the second grade team, but the entire Prairie View community. Sincerely, Julie Zell.
All right, the final public comment we have is from Karen Schell. And this begins her letter. My name is Karen Schell. I'm the parent of 3 District 301 students, one of whom was blessed to have Mr. DiDomenico as her second grade teacher last school year. I'm a former teacher of 14 years, 9 of those years as an elementary school teacher. I've also been co-president of the Prairie View PTO for the last 2 years and served as co-secretary for a year. Given my experience as a teacher, my daughter's personal experience with Mr. D as a teacher, and my level of my involvement with the school and numerous parents, I can confidently say that District 301 is losing an amazing and inspiring teacher and person by choosing not to rehire Mr. D, for the upcoming school year. I was shocked when I first learned of this, as I know firsthand what an incredible teacher he is. The flood of calls, emails, and texts I received when it was made known about the district's decision not to rehire Mr. D were numerous. The administration, Mr. D had the admiration Mr. D has from his students' parents, and the community is endless. I cannot imagine why our district would want to let go a teacher of Mr. D's caliber and also character. And to speak to his character, upon learning that he was not being rehired, he continued to rise up and put his students' needs first by organizing a school-wide parade today with many of the PV teachers and staff. My daughter often comments on the memories and lessons she learned while in Mr. D's class. She grew so much last year, both academically and emotionally. He is a teacher that will leave a forever impact on her mind and heart. I am so saddened that our district is making the choice to let Mr. D. Domenico not be a part of so many students' future. I know Mr. D will find a new job, and I am excited for his future students, but heartbroken it will not be the students of District 301. That's the final public comment. We'll move on to action reports. So we need a motion and a second to discuss and approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. The revenue and expenditure summary reports are included in the board packet. Revenues are currently at 48.02% compared to 42.23% a year ago. Expenditures are at 57.21% compared to 56.54% a year ago. The district received impact fees of $12,925.87 for 2 home starts. There were no transition fees for this month. The bills payable reports are typical for April. The volume is down, but the dollar amount is still in line as other years. Another layer of security that was added to our bank accounts, we've set up ACH positive pay that goes along with our check positive pay, and it's just another layer of protection on our accounts for anyone that would try to withdraw anything via an ACH rather than a check out of our account. There are some approved vendors that we put on a list. Those are mostly related to payroll and our credit card, RevTrack, and Pitney Bowes. And then finally, Prairie Knolls Star account, they have a food pantry, received a donation of $500 from Hawthorne Associates of Lake County. They are helpful with us with our Medicaid claims and our My Service Tracker program that we use to file claims in time for our teachers. When the schools closed in March, this company was looking for ways to help their clients and the students they serve. So they looked through local food pantries, and they've had 10 requests, and they fulfilled all 10 requests. They've been working with Central for over 20 years, and they thought that that was the least that they could do to help out our school. And then when I was in conversations with them, they said that if the state extends e-learning through May, that they may do another round. So I may be back with another donation maybe next month. The donation goes towards filling non-perishable food items to restock our food pantry that is for the community that's housed at Prairie Knolls. And then we did buy some Aldi's gift cards to get some fresh fruit and vegetables and meat or milk or other perishable items to go along with the non-perishable items that we have stored at Prairie Knolls. That's it.
All right. Dr. Stern, do you want to go over the board policies?
I can quickly cover those with the board. So as we were reviewing the handbook updates, we're also looking at the information related to medical policies for the board. And actually our home and hospitalization instruction policy is being updated to actually follow the state statute. We had extra verbiage in there that was not needed, and that's why that verbiage is struck. And we follow exactly what the state statute requires. Then in the second one, under the health, eye, and dental examination and immunization reports, there's a new requirement about providing information and materials regarding influenza vaccines. That's included in there. And then the dental examination is now required in 9th grade. So that was updated in that policy as well. And then for communication, for religious and medical grounds, instead of coming that to the superintendent or designee, I've made that the designee, the director of student support services. And then finally, under the administration of medicines to students, that language was updated according to the press recommended policies, but most significantly for the administration of medical cannabis. And all of the administration is going through training for the administration of medical cannabis. That's why that's being updated.
All right. Did anyone have any
Jeff, I have a
questions?
question. Yeah, Eric here. So I read that on Friday, and my computer's acting strangely right now, so I can't pull it up. But I thought some of the language referencing oils and that was a little bit odd. Is this only referencing THC, cannabinoids, medical cannabis? This does not have to do with CBD, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, it's only things that are prescribed by a physician or
Correct.
allowed by a medical card.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Or were there any other questions on any of those items in the consent agenda? All right, Pam, let's take the roll.
Okay. Johnson,
Yes.
Ellenberger,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yes.
Panera,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
and Glenn.
Yes. All right, next I need a motion and a second to discuss and approve that the Board of Education for Central Community Unit School District 301 adopt the emergency suspension of policy due to COVID-19 pandemic resolution, authorizing the superintendent in charge of the administration of the district to the authority to adopt, revise, or temporarily suspend board policy if such suspension is necessary to implement executive orders of the governor.
So moved.
Second.
All right, did anybody have any questions on this? All right. Dr. Stern, did you want to mention anything about this? Obviously, it's needed and mandated, so.
I had to unmute myself. Yes, this came out. This was a recommendation that came out from the Illinois Association of School Administrators, and then I ran it by the board's legal counsel just to vet it out to see if they thought it was necessary. And they said it's just a good safeguard and precaution because we have set policy, and yet the executive orders of the governor will have the ability to supersede that policy, but yet it could create some questions. This way, this gives me the ability to implement the executive order of the governor and keep the board informed.
All right. Thank you. All right, Pam.
Ellenberger,
Yes.
Nolan,
Yeah.
Panera,
Yes.
Ray,
Yes.
Brown,
Yeah.
Johnson,
Yes.
Foreman.
Yes. All right, next we're going to,
Hey, Jeff, can I just quick ask if when Pam's going to take roll call, can Brian just turn us on automatically so we don't have to, so there's not that pause in there?
I cannot.
yeah, we have to do it individually,
Okay.
unfortunately. Good question. Next, we're going to move on to information items. We have some reviews of the handbook. And Principal Schreiber led the committee that reviewed and revised the elementary handbook. The changes are in the package for us to review. I can't tell if she's in the meeting.
Good evening. Good evening, Board of Education. I gave some recommendations for changes, and if anyone has any questions.
So in your board packet, you have a memo that has information that outlines those changes throughout the document, and then the updated handbook is also included in the board packet.
Jill, can you just give a basic summary, a little bit more descriptive for the board in terms of what you have for bullets in the memo?
Yes, absolutely. So on page 6 of the elementary handbook, we talked about medical information, medical exemptions, and religious exemptions. They were updated due to school board policy. On page 7, we updated our language and lunch fees for 2020, 2021. The paid lunch went to $3 and the adult teacher lunch went to $3.75. We also then looked at page 16 for grading. We changed a little bit of the language so that the quarter of the grades for grades 1st through 5th would be on Skyward, and also when grades were posted for 2nd grade and early childhood, that was not updated this past school year. So it's just making sure that the grade levels are represented with specific grades posted on Skyward for the parent information. And on page 16 for homework, we just changed a little bit about how homework is the extension of learning that occurs within the classroom, that it's not supposed to be a punitive measure, just making sure that homework is purposeful and meaningful. And on page 20, we did medication administration, and that again is updating what coincides with the board policy. Any questions so far? Okay. Page 21, we updated the medication dispensing guidelines, just making sure that the administrator or the nurse is documenting any administration of dosage of medicine to a child, making sure that we have that documented. And then we also updated on page 21 the administration of medical cannabis, which would follow our board policy. And our last one was page 39 for our busing, and that was to update all the links for the information so that Pam Porto had all that linked into our handbook for parents to view.
And then you want to talk about the student device handbook and what we did there?
Yes. And we actually have a student device handbook that was added actually to all levels, discussing what the student device handbook, so it's separate from the actual handbook, but it's an additional policy for parents to observe for our Chromebooks.
And those policies have been in place all along. It used to be a separate piece that we would have parents sign at registration. Instead of having a separate document there, we put it with the student parent handbook. So it's no addition or no change. What we've always done, it's just where we located it.
All right. Were there any other questions? Sorry.
I was just going to say that this is information, so if there's other questions that would arise that can be shared with us, we can bring it back to the board next month for action.
Okay. We'll move on to the middle school handbook. Principal Hogg led. Thank you, Dr. Schreiber. Principal Hogg led the committee that reviewed and revised the middle school handbook. He's also participating in our meeting, and he's available to answer any questions. And I'm sure he'll go over a few of the points. So, Dr. Hogg.
Right. Good evening, everyone. So our handbook upgrades are actually very similar to what you're going to find once you get to the high school, and some of which was contained in Dr. Schreiber's as well. The major proposals that you see included this year is a replacement of our student dress policy. And that was done on, let's see, that's on page 21, 22. It just fully brings us into alignment with the board policy. We had an extra diagram in there in the past, which had created some confusion for folks. So we pulled that out, cleaned up the language so that it matches exactly what the board policy has. The bulk of the remaining changes that you'll see are minor changes for verbiage. Health services, page 23, Dr. Stern already mentioned that, and some of that, bringing us into alignment with board policy, the health requirements for immunizations on page 23. On page 23, you'll also see additional language that cleans up much of the immunization work. Page 24, there was some exemptions that were cleaned up to align with board policy as well as HIPAA compliance. We also have some corrections to the communicable and chronic infectious disease on page 24, which again cleans up language. Page 24, again, illness and injury, cleaning up language, making sure that we're very clear about having emergency contacts for emergency children or emergency situations with children so we can get them picked up. And that was also a change there for the types of reasons we would need kids picked up, which is a guideline from the Illinois Department of Public Health, clarifying language, making sure we're consistent with grade levels. On page 25, we have cleaned up some of our language for excuses for medical reasons. Primarily their diagnosis was not needed. We are now in compliance with the Medical Practice Act. On page 26, medication policy change, some additional language, some struck language. Once again, cleaning up language, coming into compliance with board policy as well as compliance with the law under the Use of Medical Cannabis Program Act. On page 26, we've struck some language from the administration of medication to students because that was redundant language from the previous section, so that was no longer needed. Also on page 26, self-carry and administration of medication. There was some language that was struck there, pulling out the district being authorized for the provision of an EpiPen. The district does not have undesignated EpiPens. They are not required to have these. So we pulled that out of our handbook. If we turn now to page 29, there was some additional information, cleanup of language, as well as coming into compliance with board policy for home and hospital instruction. Again, Dr. Stern already covered some of that. Moving to page 33, there was cleanup of language for the bus transportation. We were clarifying some of that information. Also on page 23, cleanup of language aligning with all schools, that is instruction to parents. We also added a piece on page 33 about the late academic bus, primarily making sure that families and children know that students have to sign up for that late academic bus by a certain time, simply because the rationale behind that is routes are created each day based upon the riders, and unplanned riders force conflicts with those routes. So they wanted to make sure if there is an emergency situation comes up, an administrator handles that for them. And then lastly was, as Dr. Schreiber indicated, an additional section to our handbook, the student device handbook, was added to this as well. And that is all for the middle school.
All right, thanks. Does anyone have any questions for Dr. Howe? All right, thank you. Next, for the high school, Assistant Principal Stroh led the committee that reviewed and revised the high school handbook. They had many similar changes. Mr. Stroh is also participating. So, Mr. Stroh, would you like to go over or highlight your changes?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. The biggest part was the addition of Appendix A, which was the student device handbook. From there, page 8 went into our health services. which went along in lines of the board policy to get that corrected with page 8 with homebound instruction. We then went into page 12 to talk about how 9th grade dental examinations are not required. From there, we went into the health examination and immunizations, some changes there from the state. So we included those on page 12 as well. Page 13, we had exemptions, which was already talked about with Dr. Schreiber and Dr. Haug. Page 14 also talked about earlier was the communicable and chronic infectious disease. Illness and injury on page 14, a couple little tweaks there to verbiage and changes based on the different episodes for sickness. Page 15, excuses for medical reasons and religious reasons was tweaked so that we were all in line with one another. Page 16 then went into the administration of medication. Those changes were already talked about. Also on page 16, administering medicine to students is, got rid of the 2 first paragraphs as talked about previously. Page 17 with the self-carry and self-administration of medication. Once again, getting rid of that paragraph that said that the school would have an EpiPen available, which we do not. It's not required. Page 18 went into bus transportation. So rewording of that first paragraph there as far as the distance away from schools, and then a change in the paragraph to instruction to parents on how to change any information for their bus or students' bus route. Page 19, we added the piece on the late academic buses already previously mentioned. And that is it for the changes for the high school handbook.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Stroh. Anybody have any questions for him right now? All right. Next, we'll go over Country Trails Elementary School celebrations. Principal Engel and Assistant Principal Alstead have created a video clip that highlights areas for Country Trails to celebrate and share with the board the next steps towards continuous improvement.
Elementary. Thank you so much for taking the time to review CT's 2019-2020 school improvement celebrations. Let's dive in. New additions. This school year, the district welcomed Kate Vincent in as our SEL coordinator. In partnership with CT, we opened the Leeds Classroom. Leeds stands for Learning Emotional and Academic Development Skills and is a K-2 SEL classroom. Miss Warren teaches the Leeds class and has done an amazing job with her students as well as collaborating with staff at CT. Under SEL, we also improved our STOIC principles as we worked on revamping behavior strategies in the classroom. Specifically, this year, we developed a new addition piloted in a few classrooms called Calming Corners. These spaces were designed with the intention of students who needed to find their peace as an area to go rest and refocus. Next year, we hope to implement this space in every classroom. On the data side, we implemented para goals for data collection. Paras, who support many of our students, were given specific data tracking sheets to collect important data for helping our students be more successful. This has been a work in progress, but has shown tremendous growth this year and is proven to be a game changer. We will use this data to help better support our students, leading to the least restrictive environment sooner. Academically, we had the addition of a new math resource at CT and saw its implementation across grade levels fully by the start of Q2. Improvement that happened naturally with this program was the classroom use of manipulatives and number talks, both of which are highlighted as key components within Math in Focus. The SIP team wrote a goal and celebrated accomplishing 60% of our K-5 students at or above expected math fluency level at the end of Q3. We revamped a few of our programs. This school year, we improved and reimagined our Cougar Club. This 5th grade Student Council-esque group is a service-based club meeting monthly. Highlighting a couple of the service projects they ran was a Heroes Care Package drive, where they collected items and donated it to serving military members, and our Pennies for Patients, where funds were gathered and donated to medical patients. Early childhood saw the integration and inclusion of child find and evaluations done at our home schools. One thing to highlight as a huge improvement was the implementation of play-based evaluations done remotely in a classroom live streamed to the conference room. This allowed evaluators to assess students, and students were not distracted with so many adults in the room. Our SIP team helped tweak our team meetings, allowing teachers to take more ownership in the minutes and focus of discussion. These collaborative meetings help further drive discussion weekly in those focus areas of math, ELA, and SEL. Celebrating a few Country Trail staples that continue to improve and grow each year, including Veterans Day. Veterans Day has an entire team of people dedicated to this special day. One project that is loved is our student photo collage of the American flag. Family Literacy Night, which always has the best turnout of all of our PTO school events. This year, over 800 people passed through the door. We also transformed the gym and added low bowling. We had our Reading Madness Challenge. This year, we had 5 out of 32 books as SEL titles to align with our goal and focus of social emotional learning. We continued our Watchdogs initiative that sees over 200 dads come into the school as guests, helping in the classroom with activities and reading with students. And last but not least, a huge shout out to the use and integration of technology. Teachers across District 301 embraced the use of Canvas and planned tirelessly for successful remote learning. Their resilience and creativity showed how they could lead to growth within our one-to-one devices moving forward. Although it was very stressful pandemic that led us down this path, we will emerge stronger and refreshed with new ideas for future years. Looking ahead to next year, we will continue to focus academically both math and ELA, specifically on 3x3. We want full implementation of STOIC classroom management strategies and continued use of one-to-one devices in conjunction with Canvas. I want to send a special shout out and thank you to the CT teachers and students. Without their hard work, none of these celebrations would be possible. Until next time, this is Mr. Engel.
Any questions from the board? Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah, thanks for putting that together, Principal Engel. That's great. All right, Rebecca Jers, Principal Jers, has also created a video clip for us regarding Lily Lake.
The following presentation is designed to highlight celebrations at Lily Lake Grade School this school year, as well as outline what our school improvement priorities are going to be in the upcoming school year. Through the help of our Lions Club, community partnerships and service continue to be a focus for students and staff at Lily Lake. We started the year, we start with hello and the celebration of differences. Students in 3rd grade read the dot and decided to take their positive messages across the building and throughout grade levels, and also encourage community by encouraging one another and supporting each other. Each classroom has different ways to greet one another, and they share their celebrations and struggles as a class through daily morning meetings, think, pair, share, and class discussions. Focus greetings allow students to start their day with what they need, as well as develop a sense of community. Students also made a commitment to be kind and helpful toward one another and set personal goals to support their learning and community. Lily Lake students took donations for the Elgin Crisis Center, treats for our U.S. troops, and recognized our veterans at an all-school assembly in November. In addition to donating to the local food pantries, Students supported their Lily Lake community by supporting district families who needed holiday help and meals. Lily Lake students also supported Cal's Angels and Susan B. Komen. An exciting new initiative at Lily Lake Grade School this year just began on April 13th. Through the Kane County Bicycle Club, students are staying active while learning about bicycle safety. Lily Lake was one of only 5 schools chosen in Kane County to participate in the safety initiative. This is exciting because it aligns with our PE curriculum coming up in May and also provides bicycles to students in our area who may not be able to afford them, with the added benefit of promoting physical fitness through biking with family. Growth mindset continues to be a focus at Lily Lake Grade School. Students set personal, academic, and behavioral goals for themselves and strive to continue the tradition of excellence our Lions are so accustomed to. With a focus on incorporating science and social studies across the curriculum, Lions welcomed author Sarah Aronson to Lily Lake and researched various scientists while learning about Rube Goldberg and the scientific process. Next year, staff plan to continue our work on supporting the Core Plus More through using data to drive our instructional practices. Data meetings were revamped this year to specifically focus on Tier 1 instructional practices and support. In addition, reading and writing across the curriculum will continue to be a school improvement focus as we consider how to better differentiate for our students. Math will continue to be a focus as we continue our professional development on how to better utilize math manipulatives and hone in on teaching strategies using concrete, pictorial, and abstract teaching and learning models. Staff will continue to provide rigor in the core subject areas while continuing to expand their knowledge and use of Canvas, Otis, and the online resources that they have become familiar with during this time of remote learning. Lastly, we will continue to incorporate core curricular concepts into art, music, and health as we develop well-rounded learners through building-wide systems using the STOIC model of classroom management. Thank you for your time and continued support of our Lily Lake students and staff, and for listening to this presentation.
Good evening. Does anyone have any questions for me?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for watching.
Principal Jared. All right. Next, we have a remote learning update. So, Dr. Manga, would you like to go over that?
Yeah, so first off, in your board packet, I have the remote learning teacher activity, which we've begun to track to make sure that we're getting good participation. And you can see that overall within the district, we're generally sitting at somewhere between 98 to 99% of all teachers active within the system. We track that through devices being connected through our VPN, which is how they connect into our system, as well as through Canvas, which is our learning management system. Additionally, we're also taking attendance on a day-to-day basis, self-reported by the teacher. But this report represents the VPN and the Canvas, and so we're getting very good usage rates there. I also wanted, we had submitted to you the kind of the summary of the 4 surveys that we sent out at the end of week 1. So at the end of week 1, we sent out a survey to the parent group. We had about 943 responses. Then we sent out another survey to just our students who are in 6th through 12th grade. And we had 845 responses from that group. And then we sent a survey out to our students in grades 3 through 5 with 556 responses. And then we wanted to send out a survey to our certified staff members to see how it was going. And we had 232 responses there. So we had a really decent response rate. We do intend to send the same survey out after week 4 to see how we're doing. Primarily, the results were very positive. Communication channels between both the district and the teachers for the parents was very, very positive, which you can see the results there. One of the areas we're still working with, and we have some challenges, is in the area of some parents are feeling very overwhelmed, trying to balance the work of working full-time jobs, working with their students at home, trying to educate them and keep up with the workload. It's one of those areas that we continue to work with, especially with our students with special needs. And so we had about 19% of our parent population that responded to the survey say there was too much work, but we had a 69% that said that it was just right. The response time between when a parent asks a question to when teachers are getting back to them, the response rate was very good. We had 67% said within 24 hours. And why that was so low is that about 30% of them said they had not tried to contact anyone yet. The other one, within 48 hours was 3%, and within 72 hours was less than 1%. We also saw them getting into the tools that we would have anticipated, which was good to see at a really high rate. And it looks like they were able to manage within those systems that we wanted them to. Some of the major challenges that the parents reported out that we are still trying to figure out how to assist with. Their top one was time management, just establishing those routines at home for learning. 49% of the parents who reported that was a concerned area for them. The next highest one was being able to complete assignments without help. So parents felt they had to assist their students, and that maybe understanding of the assignment wasn't as great as they would like, or some unclear expectations for assignments. And you can see those are rated in the 25% of parents or so that believe that could be improved upon. And then understanding how assignments will be graded. We knew that would come up. We were trying to determine still the end grade. We were waiting to see what the governor had decided in terms of closing school before we determine how is the final grade going to be scored, primarily because we knew we were ending April 3rd and we could be back face to face. So we were waiting to see that, and we pushed out a little bit of communication with grading last week once that came through. In the students portion, the 612, that would be middle school and high school. Again, for communication, about 70% of the students felt that the communication rate was very high, 4 or 5. About half, though, 45%, feel that the amount of work that they're seeing come from their teacher is too much. We had about a 50-50 split, 52% saying just right, and about 53% saying it's too much. So we need to consider what that looks like and try to look at that and come up with some other options there. The response rate from teaching staff is pretty good. Again, we had about 66% within 24 hours, and about 25% that said they did not have to reach out to teachers at all. 7.4% within 48 hours, or 63 of the students that responded, and 1.3 or 11 students within 72 hours. You can see again the learning tools they're using, which we would not expect to be too much out of the norm. I think the biggest challenges our students are facing is they believe there's unclear expectations for the assignments. They're not clear on what the teachers are looking for. The other two high ones, one is time management and trying to figure out how do they manage all of the curriculum coming their way, or understanding how assignments will be graded was a challenge for them. And the next highest one was just understanding the assignment. We are working on putting out for our teachers a did you know from the surveys, and the did you know is basically a tip. We let them know what we got from the surveys, and then based on some of the communication we're getting from the surveys, we're giving them resources that they can work with to try to improve the areas where we're finding either parents or students are frustrated. That first teacher piece, the did you know, went out today by our instructional coaches, and they'll continue to send those out every few days, not to overwhelm our teachers. Students in grades 3 through 5, their survey results aligned fairly closely with what the parents had given us in terms of the overall survey results. They felt that only about 101 students said it was too much work, about 18%, 75% at the elementary school level felt it was just right. Response in terms of our elementary teachers in 3 through 5, 88% within 1 day. And then within 2 days, it was 3% or 17 of the respondents. And then within 3 days was less than 1%. Again, struggling for those students is being able to complete assignments, understanding the assignments, the time management, and the unclear expectations are the highest ones. And then the next one is the understanding how to assign the grade. So the same issues we had with 612, we're seeing in 3 through 5. For our teachers, the survey, Overall, they felt really good. Either felt pretty good or felt very confident that in terms of how they were feeling for their first week of remote learning. We only had 4% that felt overwhelmed or confused. Otherwise, they fell within the feel pretty good or feel confident. After 1 week of remote learning, they felt like they were doing well in managing the classroom and the coursework, or they felt fully equipped and able to help other teachers or people within their groups. And then 28 or about 29% said they were still adjusting, learning, and trying to figure out the whole remote learning thing. But overall, we had about 67% or 68% of our staff that felt pretty good. They felt the most positive aspect, which I think is really good, and part of what you heard Grady speak about. The most positive aspect of remote learning for them has been the support and collaboration. They're working with their teams, working with special education teachers, other related service personnel to improve their curriculum, and they feel like they're getting the support and collaboration that they need. They believe that the next highest group was they felt they were learning new skills related to technology that they actually could bring back to their classroom and felt they were becoming stronger in those areas. And then the other ones were a little bit lower, but those were the two highest. And then I think the most challenging aspect, they say, for them is student engagement. So they're seeing some struggles with student engagement, and we will have a report put together for the board to show you some of the areas of student engagement that we're struggling with, especially in light of the governor's request that we either do incompletes or we do passes. I feel we wanted to get their social emotional feel and how they were doing overall. They are feeling anxious or nervous, with a large percent of them feeling that way. Overwhelmed, a large percent are feeling overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, or nervous. But the good news is that they're also feeling excited and invigorated and happy. So overall, the results looked pretty good. Any questions for me?
No, that's some great information, Dr. Morgan. Thanks for putting all it together for us. I'm sure once we digest it, we'll have some more questions. We'll definitely have some questions.
Yep, send them my way.
Personally, I'm just thankful that we don't have everyday math, because I don't know how I would be able to help my child with that if I were teaching them at home. So I had to throw that in there.
I would have been surprised if you didn't.
All right. Next, we'll move on to freedom of information. We have a couple of them. So first was Dr. Neil Tackiff.
Yes. Neil Tackiff is with a law firm, and he requested our policies and procedures related to bus transportation of general or special education students, dealing with the use of bus stops versus door-to-door transportation, use of safety restraints on a bus for special education students, job qualifications and training for bus drivers, getting special and general education students on and off the bus, a bus driver's authority to intervene with special and or general education students engaged in behavior or riding the bus that requires a write-up and a report, and then any documentation of trainings for the bus drivers, of special education students or staff that support special education students on the bus. It was a very lengthy FOIA. We had to ask for an extension to gather all the documentation and then to go through it with legal counsel just to make sure that we're protecting student rights and privacy rights as well, but we were able to respond to that FOIA. The second FOIA came from Miss Jen Weeks with Smart Local 265. And that FOIA was regarding invoices related to any work related to HVAC, exhaust systems, architectural metal, new installation or replacement of school lockers and kitchen renovations. And we use Service Concepts for our HVAC, and we were able to reply to that FOIA as well.
All right, that concludes our open session, our first section of the open session. So need a motion and a second to adjourn the closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Nolan,
Yes.
Kennard,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Ellenberger,
Yes.
and Gordon.
Yes. Thank you to everybody for your presentations and attending this evening. We will be back after we finish up executive session. To approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Hold it. Who made the motion?
Go with these two.
I'll give it to Kennard. Who seconded it?
Eric.
Chrissy.
Very good. Reed,
Rock, paper, scissors.
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kellenberger,
Yes.
Cullen,
Yes. Yes. Sorry, I'm back.
Kennard,
Yes.
Gorman.
Yes.
Very good. Now we'll just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, all.
All right. Take care.
Thanks,
Thank you. Take care.